Vona Groarke's Infinity Pool is a careful and complex meditation on poetry itself. In the title poem, we encounter the infinity pool for the first time, and this boundary barely seems to exist, a blue rectangle with indiscernible edge, stitching and seams. This pool is the site of poetry making, but it is elusive. Carrying folded water isn't feasible. You know that. From here on, we are searching for the frontier between a poem and its subject. Where, in the infinity pool, does water become air? At first, this seems an impossible task. In mise en scène, the speaker laments when you dream of water and can't figure out what dreaming of water is supposed to signify. In the tell, they beg the audience, will you know what it is I write about? One thing is clear. If we are to understand the infinity pool, we must speak the language of water. There is constant reference to the ocean, to rain, to tides. This water motif permeates the collection. The Atlantic Ocean is a character in its own right, introduced in Un Paul Gorme, the blue rectangle, and recurring in a series of paired portraits. Imagine the Atlantic as different types of work, where water is pushed to the fore and its symbolic meaning constantly invented and exhausted. The centrepiece of this collection is the expansive still life in marble, which follows a sculptor with his latest creation. A man of means has died, and the dying must be marked in marble. Immediately, art is a tool of remembrance and preservation, and we've encountered this sentiment already in mise en scène, when summers a word typed in black ink. As we progress through still life, the interior world of the sculptor blends with his work. He thinks of his wife, he thinks of his son, his daughter, and before long this blurring of lines is overt. He develops a sty he imagines bigger than his head, so he carves a pimple into the statue. This sty is an emblem for those fragments of emotion and experience that we process through art. Still life ends with this. From what I see, there is no sty, nor can my finger feel it out. You could feel nothing, or not much, unless it's a sore eye you lift your hand to. Art is not about mass appeal. It's about the specifics, those things unnoticed by the general audience unless it is dust in their mouth. So, we understand the value and function of a poem, the carving of the sty. In The Future of a Poem, Groarke gives us a playful vision for what we can do next. Leave it out to sweet talk the rain, wear it close. What quickly emerges, though, is the idea of loss, of the absence of a poem. See how white spaces persist? The speaker asks us to consider a poem erased. Will the rubbings recall the poem? Would you call it a loss? There is a transformative quality to absence we learn through this collection. In The Tell, we encounter a room alight with our not being there. In Imagine the Atlantic as a Journalist, one leafful of water, added or removed, makes for a different sea. With water well established as our site of poetic creation, we understand that a poem gone unwritten nonetheless holds significance. Groarke shows an intimate awareness of the mechanics of poetry, but for me her most exciting poems are the ones that push the boundaries. Only 2 lines long, ending without a poem, is the shortest piece in the collection. Why rust patches on the evening sky? It's not as if I didn't use the day. By challenging the reader to invent for themselves what poem could justify this striking image, Groarke confronts the relationship between poet and audience. Are we passive recipients of an artist's final product, or are we part of its making? Groarke brings us to the edge of how little a poem can be. The prose poem Introduction is about a 1951 Western Union telegram. I'd read this poem for you now, swears the speaker, except it doesn't exist. She can't do it. We've seen a poem with no subject, and now a subject with no poem. It's a strange admission to make, I'm unable to sweet-talk it into a poem. But it turns out to be a liberatory one. With all formalities dropped, the screen between poet and audience evaporated, Groarke can go about finishing the collection. The speaker of Infinity Pool yearned to magic my body through my own fourth wall. And so we come to the poem, My Own Fourth Wall. This is a reckoning between us and the speaker and the game of poem we're playing here. This is the making of a poem where both poet and audience prove elusive. But ultimately, Groarke promises us this. If I were able to nudge the cold stone of this poem past the lip of its stone-cold certainties, I would. wouldn't I? It's beautiful, it's conclusive, it's the perfect way to end this collection. Or it would be. Except this isn't the final poem. There's one more. Reading Chinese love poems in a borrowed English house reads like a series of vignettes. Razor-sharp observations and meditations on the speaker's surroundings and emotional response to them. It's a distillation of poetry, these pure droplets of poem. It has an epigraph and will dissolve the sorrows of 100 centuries, from Vikram Seth's translation of Li Bai's Bring in the Wine. But when I read this poem for the first time, I knew I was missing some understanding of why this is the poem's final say, and not my own fourth wall. The key is in the final phrase, as if I too were riddled with time. It takes us back to the first poem in the collection, Stansted to Knock, December 21st, and its line, here I am open, riddled with light. And this parallel between time and light breaks open the entire collection. Ampel Gorm, the blue rectangle, ends with, my mind is a fossil in a gaunt sun, losing less than I thought, growing old. In Lint, they reflect on aging. Where did it go, all that future? Did it fall through my body like a stone through air? Nocturne with Ink gives us our best answer for the significance of time to the poet. It draws an equivalence between poem making and aging, words through ink, time through body, and an overt reference to the borrowed English house of our final poem. You'll be sleeping now, mind unriddled and far away from this time-lag cottage. To be riddled, it seems, is to be concerned with making poetry, riddled with light, riddled with time, illuminating, preserving all these things that a poem can do. But what is a poet? This has been our question all through Infinity Pool. Where does the world end and the art begin? What is a poem? I read Li Bai, the same moon, give or take, the self-same solitude. It tells us this: poetry is a deeply inherited practice. We receive form and language and ways of feeling from the poets that came before us. And what we write is preserved in writing. We are preserved in writing. I live in writing. Vona Groarke's Infinity Pool is a vision of poetic intent that dissects the art form with care and intimate knowledge. It is a deft, thoughtful collection that bears reading and rereading, whose waters will wash up something new every time. If you take anything from this review, let it be this: dive in. To the Infinity Pool, to poetry making. Dive in.